Hey everyone, welcome back to one of our fabulous lives. I am here with the amazing Emma Lyons, aka Trauma Matrix, and myself, Allegra Jackson, the marketing medulla. We're going to be talking today about really rewiring the trauma matrix and reclaiming that power in business. We've been having this conversation for a couple of weeks, and we want to make sure that you guys can tune in. We switched over from the IG stage. We want to make sure we get you guys in a space where you're comfortable. So whether you're on YouTube, LinkedIn, um, whether you're on Facebook, right? Any of these spaces, just let us know where you're tuning in from. You can put a heart. You can tell us, where you're at in the world, city wise. Emma is in. Are you in Mexico still, Emma?
I'm still in Mexico. Yes, it's lovely and beautiful outside,
I wish
as
I was.
usual, like
I
every
just
day.
it's not weather friendly, I'm in and out. I'll come visit, but
Yeah.
so Emma has some amazing resources for you guys today. We're going to talk about basically today we have a conversation that we're going to wrap around how trauma shows up in your leadership, how it shows up in your sales, how it shows up in your self-worth, and how to heal, right? To own your own voice, and also, how to clarify that vision in your business. So I'm going to just start with, first of all, as a business coach, for those of you who've never met us before, I'd love to really support and guide women entrepreneurs to make sure that you are not overwhelmed in your business, right? There's a lot of things that can be going on in our lives. I also believe that we manage and we organize and we structure and we strategize every single day of our lives, but we don't acknowledge it as that. So when we get into our business, we are not amplifying ourselves enough to say that we already have the skills. We already do it every single day. So we're going to talk about some of the things that are limiting us and that are blocking us in those areas. Emma, I want you to introduce yourself as well. Tell them what you do, and then let's get into this topic of conversation today.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. Thank you so much for joining in, and thanks, Allegra, for setting this up. This is so cool. My name is Emma Lyons, like Allegra said, and what I do is I work a lot with women actually, and I help them unhook from that kind of that inner critic, that voice that kind of that stems from trauma that tells you you're not good enough, there's something wrong with you, you can't succeed, you'll never be able to do it, all of that stuff. So you can unhook from the source code of that, which is shame, so that you can really start to thrive and follow all of the amazing strategies that Allegra gives you. So you're actually thriving and doing it without being bogged down by all this stuff that you don't need. That it's been down through the generations, all this shame sludge. Especially women carry so much of that, Allegra. So it's time to dump all of that and move forward.
I totally agree. I'm glad that we're having the conversation. So thank you for joining me. And for some of us who just really have not had a safe space to have these conversations, we want to welcome you in. We have come from community. We have definitely understood what partnership and collaboration looks like. We want you to understand the same. There's nothing wrong with being able to, understand more about who you are and who you're aligned with. And so I've seen, even in our win community, people that have grown in so many different areas of their life because they've heard, these type of messages, they've heard the live streams, and they have been able to elevate and change in the way that they do life, and that trickles down to everything else, such as your business, your family, your career. So Emma, the topic is how trauma shows up in leadership, sales, and self-worth. Today, I really want to just streamline into this because some of the things that people can tell themselves, right? And this is, I think, something that I've been told is, you're too emotional. You're too sensitive. Okay.
Yeah.
Emma, you're not on your head because, I think like if you look at the truth, right? Because let's be honest, we are all carrying experiences that has shaped how we see ourselves, how we lead, how we sell. I mean, I even shared it one of my live streams over a week ago, that I used to lower my prices all the time. Like I used to make a way for people to, um, for people to kind of like look at me and question things like, why are your prices so low? There was even a gentleman that told me, he was like, I didn't even buy from you because it looked shady. Like, you seemed like you do a good job, but the price just wasn't really giving. So I was really in my head about, based on my experiences, that people couldn't afford me, or I had to lower my prices so people could afford it. And that wasn't true. But at the time, that's what I would feel. So there are experiences that we carry that do shape the way that we sell to people, that do shape the way we lead. I think some of the things that we don't address is, the trauma, right, that we're talking about here. And and if you don't process it, it will come out, right? Like, it'll come out in the decisions that we make, right?
And the procrastination, things that you don't do, the
like
money that
like
you spend on coaching and then never actually put it to good use. They're just and putting it off because you're trying to be perfect. I mean, there are a million different creative ways that we get in our own way and stop ourselves from having the success that's within our grasp.
hmm yeah, unprocessed trauma does not stay silent. Like, if you don't process the trauma that you're feeling, especially if, the truth is that you are not too emotional and you're not too sensitive. I had to really tell myself that. And sometimes we have to be in that place, Emma, and with the help and support of people like yourself and like myself and all the coaches and mentors and strategists out there. Like, we have to, work on ourselves as well, so we know what that looks like. um, we know what it feels like to be called too emotional, too sensitive. We know that, everything that we do, everything that we experience, that has shaped how we see what we do in our business and our life. And so let's talk about it and break it down.
Well, I mean, it shows up in pretty much every way because when you have this internalized trauma, I mean, it's stuff that you get when you're growing up as a child because we live in a world that's so, even if you think, I thought my family was totally normal and cool, but I realized it was only when I was an adult that I started to see all the dysfunction that was kind of running the show under the surface. And I was the scapegoat in that family system because I was the sensitive one. I was told exactly that, Allegra. I was told, you're too sensitive. If I ever got upset, I was told that I was self-absorbed, so I wasn't allowed to be upset. I wasn't allowed to be angry. I was allowed to be sad and depressed if I was quiet over there and no one had to look at me. So what happens, we call it trauma, and it can happen with one situation, like where a parent shouts at you, but it can also be like lots of kind of micro cuts, invisible wounds that basically install this system of shame and guilt around in your system, and it's like it becomes your emotional operating system. So if you had to kind of walk on eggshells in your family, you will take that into your adulthood. If you were living through a shame-based role, like the golden child or, the scapegoat or whatever, from a dysfunctional family, you are inevitably going to take that into your adulthood, and it's going to affect how you operate, even if you're not conscious of it. Even if you are, and when you're aware, you can be, I know all about this, you can be aware of it and it can still be there. It can still be, so it requires, you need to unhook from it. But it's something that happens, I think. I think all humans, we live in a very dysfunctional world, so it's kind of all this. I talk a lot about shame being the currency here, being like the code of this trauma matrix. And this comes from everywhere, especially as women, Allegra. We are bombarded with shame all the time. Women are too fat, too thin, too ugly, your teeth aren't straight enough, you're not the right color, you're too dark, got too much cellulite. So we're just, as women, we experience that shame, and we also, as women, we shame each other. We're like the crabs in the bucket pulling each other down. So there's this real culture of shame that makes us, lash out against other women. And also we have that internalized shame that lashes out in ourselves, oh, you can't do that. You can't put that offer out there, and it can be so vicious and so malignant. And even just quiet shame under the surface, it can really put your whole body into fright mode where you actually can't move. It's not like your mind is thinking, your whole body just goes into freeze. And people pleasing, that's another one. That's another trauma response where you go into people pleasing, and you've just been talking about, lowering your prices. That's fawning. That's trying to people please. That's trying to be liked by everyone. But as you recognize from your story, like people don't take you seriously if you're always bowing and trying to make yourself likable to everyone, because people think, my God, she doesn't know what she's doing. And because you're not taking yourself seriously, you're not standing up for yourself, people think that's how you operate in business as well. So
Hmm.
how you do anything is how you do everything, and it's also how people see you. We get this kind of dysfunction modeled to us as normal in our society growing up, and then we act that out. We use shame unconsciously, and that shame, it becomes like the malignant normal. And it's time we really, as women, we need to break up with this once and for all, because it's toxic for us, it's toxic for our kids, and also it's toxic for businesses and everything that we touch.
Yeah, it's all a mindset shift. So, we have to start with how we think about these things. And y'all, listen, I'm guilty of it. I'm definitely one person that, like I said before, I've lowered my prices. I've belittled my standard. Right. We're going to talk about how trauma shows up in leadership. If you're in the room with us, shout out to you, because that means that you are really betting and investing on yourself. I do want to know how this makes you feel, right? This conversation is really about receiving. Emma, I think that you were the first person I've ever heard talk about really that everything, even around money blocks, is all about receiving. Um,
Yes.
and till this day I still complain when I don't have pockets. Like I had a sundress on yesterday at the pop up and create adult coloring book night. We had
Yeah.
that yesterday, and y'all will see pictures, I will post them. But the whole time, all I kept thinking, about like our creativity and our awareness to elevate in our life, because it's all about healing and building. I think about the fact that when I buy clothes now, I always make sure they have pockets. Always. Even my mother now, like, she loves to buy me stuff, and she'll get me an outfit, and I'm like, does it have pockets? She already knows.
Yeah, this is an essential for you now.
Yeah, but it was a mindset about really realizing how that is part of it. That's part of the holistic area of receiving, being open to doing it in the smallest ways, right? Because it's going to reflect in everything we do. So let's
Yeah.
talk about how trauma shows up in leadership, because you talked about it, Emma, and
Yeah.
I want
It,
to elaborate on these four parts, and I want to hear your thoughts
go
about
ahead.
what you would say to some, what you say about them, because I think they're so true. The first one is how trauma shows up in leadership is micromanaging or avoiding
Oh,
delegation.
that is a huge one, because when you are, living from this place of flight, fright, and freeze, which is basically trauma response, one way that we can manage that is we try to control everything. So that means we don't delegate. We're like constantly in, oh my God, I have to make it work. I have to make it come out like I want to. And we become super controlling. And as well as that being really unhealthy for us, Allegra, it also stops things from working, because when you show up in that mode, you are the opposite of magnetic. People see you with the clenched jaw, and they're like, "Oh my God, who is that person?" That's you are kind of you're giving off the opposite vibes to magnetic. People are like, "Oh my God, it's kind of aggressive," and you might not mean that. You might not even be aware of that. And that's the thing. It's like the trauma, this trauma response of trying to control is just there under the surface. And I know about that from firsthand, because that was my trauma response. Trying to control everything. My trauma response was like building walls, so becoming invisible. And then trying not to let anyone get too close to me so that I couldn't be hurt again. And then at the same time, I was trying to show up. So I was pulling myself in two directions. And that's why things didn't really work until I worked through that and learned how to let go of all the shame that I was carrying. That really meant that I had to build these walls and protect myself from being seen. So that is a huge one. trying to be in control, not letting other people do it. It's and not trusting, because you have to. One thing about receiving, receiving requires an open palm. If you're clutching and trying to control, you're like this. That's not receiving mode. That's fighting mode. You know, you to receive, you have to open up. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. They put it in your palm. That's the receiving mode. You need to surrender. Clutching, tense mode, that's the exact opposite. So this is how you don't show up as a leader. People don't people when people see you as a real embodied leader, especially as a woman, we want to show up in that kind of relaxed receiving mode state. So this is something that people can model so they can also receive as well. I think you're muted, Allegra.
Sorry, I'm just so like into this conversation. I just like started talking. Thank you guys for joining us. Everything you said was so true and real because I've had those moments, of really not really wanting to receive. And I shared with you guys in some of our last series. I don't know if you remember, Emma, but I had a traumatic experience as a child where someone, snatched money out of my hand. And
Oh
I
yeah.
was like, I don't know how I felt about that until I got therapy later in life and realized I was constantly feeling like money was going to leave me, right?
Yeah.
So I was finding ways. And that wasn't the only reason, but it was just a contributing factor.
Hmm.
And I had to realize that receiving was really about being open to loving myself,
Yeah.
right? Because if I didn't love myself, then I self sabotaged a lot, like I would avoid
Exactly.
actually receiving. Um, and it talks about how trauma is really like when it shows up in leadership is really rooted in like exactly what you said, control issues, trust issues. You fear that no one's going to do right but you. I've heard this so many times. Like people be like, I know I can't have anybody, I can't hire anyone to do that. And I'm like, you can't hire anyone to do that? No, 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 they're not going to do it right. And it's like, how do you know? So we do kind of get into this micromanaging. I was one too. Okay.
Yeah,
So
me too. Yeah, you're
I
just
get
kind
it.
of you're in battle mode. That's what that is. You're in battle mode, control mode, and that is not trusting, that is not receiving mode. So think
Yeah.
about that.
It
Um,
also says avoiding delegation too.
yeah, because I mean the two things go hand in hand. If you believe like that nobody else can do it like me, then you want to control it, you want to micromanage, nobody else can do it exactly as I want. And also in here we have perfectionism, which is another one. All
Mm,
of these things, under you can see the undercurrent of shame here, because it's all I have to prove, I have to show that I'm good enough, I have to make it perfect. And
yeah.
it's all because deep down inside there's this feeling of maybe I'm not good enough, I have to prove
Mm,
that I'm worthy, I have to show them, I have to show myself, I have to get the AA, the highest, I have to do the best video in the world or show up as the absolute perfect best version of myself. But rather than just showing up as who you really are,
mhm.
with this perfectionism is really toxic. And so many women wear it as a badge of honor. They think it's like something but it's just shame. It's just fear wearing high heels. It's fear operating, but it's the socially acceptable version. I'm just a perfectionist, but that's 100% shame undercurrent. That's the opposite of trusting. And also self doubt, the same thing. If you're constantly questioning yourself and second guessing yourself, should I, shouldn't I, if you can't make a decision, that's the same thing. That's kind of shame, self doubt. It's you're shaming yourself. Oh my God, I can't make the right decision. What if I do the wrong thing? Oh my God, that's shame. That's real fear, and underneath it you'll find shame. So again, it's this traumatized child part in itself, this protector part, this part that wants to keep you safe, or that pretends to want to keep you safe, but really it just kind of sucks your power and prevents you from doing actions that are going to move you forward in your life.
Very powerful. So let's go to the next one because there's a lot that we can grab from that, right?
Mm.
I was the micromanager and the person that was afraid to delegate. Also, overgiving and overworking. Feeling the need to prove your worth by doing more.
Yeah. Exactly. So again, that's because you feel like you're not enough. So I have to give more. I have to give more to the client. I have to give them everything so that they'll validate me and tell me that I'm
I
good enough. So
wonder how
I
many
feel like
how
enough.
many people can relate to that. Like that's
I mean,
serious.
I've got both hands up here.
I
Yeah.
think out of the hundreds of women that I've worked with over the last few years, guys, I'm gonna be honest with you. Probably about 90%, probably more. You know what I'm saying? I've heard that from.
Yeah.
I've seen that experience of like, oh my God, I just and this is one of the things that I think is so interesting because it says
Yeah.
overgiving and
Yeah.
overworking, which I think is a condition. I think you
Yeah.
talked about things being in the nervous system, not actually having to do with that mentality. So sometimes the
Well,
overgiving and the overworking, is that in that nervous system?
definitely. And it comes from, this idea you have to be a good girl in order to be loved. I have to be good little girl. I have to be nice. I have to be quiet. I have to give them more. So this is why we give so much. We overgive because we feel like we want to satisfy them. It's a fawning response. It's what they call flight, fright and fight. And there's also fawn. That's one that's not always talked about, but I think that's a huge one for women because when we're in that traumatic responses, a lot of people, they just kind of go into freeze and just let people do whatever they want, let themselves be walked all over, even though they know that's not what they want, but their body kind of overreacts, body kind of overcompensates and says, right, this is just, we let them do what they want so that we can survive. So we kind of just open ourselves up into that. And it's not just about mindset, it's about your whole body is kind of on lockdown. It's the good girl. You want to be
So
good
that
girl.
would sometimes require, well, I
Yeah.
can relate to that. I was raised in a family where, I should have been the golden child, but I wasn't. Like I'm the oldest, right? So
Yeah.
so you want to please your parents, you want to please people to be that person that they look at you as, right? And
Yeah.
when you don't fit into that role, a lot of times you start to, I think for me, overcompensate.
Oh, yeah.
Try and just do things to show and prove that no, 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 I am that golden child. I am the daughter that you want, that perfect piece, that fits the puzzle. And when you talk about overgiving and overworking, I think we have to assess that, because if I didn't have a moment in my life to actually sit back and separate myself, right? Because when I was growing up as a kid, I couldn't separate myself. I didn't have the ability to be like, I don't want to be that, right? Like I'm just
Yeah.
learning. But once you become an adult, guys, we have to start to think about our lives as our own. And that requires, reassessing where we need to unlearn things. And that's really what this is about. It's about unlearning, things that are maybe in that nervous system. Emma even gave us an assignment last week to pay attention to the things that may, cause that shame, things that may push you in certain directions. Those are silent, narcissistic thoughts that we have in our own minds that we've adapted from others, that now we say to ourselves every day, right? Like, oh, I'm fat, or I'm not capable, or I'm not this, So overgiving, overworking, that's one. I want to call two more. Another one was fear of visibility, like staying small or behind the scenes because, past experiences have taught you that being seen is being, I guess, unsafe.
That's exactly it. And that was one that I struggled with a lot. So it's not just about showing up. When I had such fear of visibility when I started out. I remember the first YouTube video I made, or the first Facebook video. That was the first one. And absolutely terrified. Like, I don't think anyone even watched it, but the amount of fear that was like running my nervous system at the time was just wild because I was the invisible. I learned as a child that, to be safe, you got to just be quiet, be invisible, and don't draw attention to yourself. So this was the whole wiring in my nervous system. So that's a huge thing that I'm still, I'm overcoming. And as you get to the next level, like, and you expand even more. But that's been a key piece for me, this visibility piece, allowing myself to be seen. And also when I do show up, allowing myself to be seen fully, because there's a way of kind of showing up and doing the things and still kind of holding back, still kind of hiding. Because I know you can say exactly the same thing. And I've seen this with my clients as well. You can say the exact same things. I had one client who, before she worked with me, she had the sales script that, and everyone used to kind of try to bargain with her on the price. And after we worked together, she did the exact same script, and no one tried to bargain with her anymore. So it's not just about showing up and running through the script. It's about the energy that you bring to it. This is what really makes people drawn to you. So you can show up physically, but be actually checked out. And that's not what we want. We want you to be like embodied in your power when you show up. Not just reading robotically or just speaking. You want to speak with passion. So people will feel that and want and resonate with that and want to know more about what you're doing.
Yeah. And I think just to add to that, because that's so deep, but then when you're not prepared in your business, like when you don't have your products together, when you're not fully aware of even your own business success, like really know your business, it makes it even harder to show up, right? And to be visible because now, all of those shameful things that you've already experiencing, it's now taking energy from other things that can pull from, like, okay, yeah, your business is not together like it should be. And, your products aren't as great as they should be, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So we have to realize, I think this is such a great conversation because a lot of us are in this space where, I was telling one of my clients, I said, you don't realize how good you are, do you? And she was like, no, I don't think I do. Right.
Oh, yeah, and most people don't, especially women. We
Right.
can see it in other people, but we've been taught to kind of be modest, to be humble. We can see it in other people, but oh my God, I'm not that good myself. We don't want
Yeah.
to brag. A lot of men are better at bragging about themselves and talking about it. Women, we've been trained to keep it low key. And that's how you stay safe, girl, by keeping quiet. Don't talking about yourself. Don't big yourself up. Who do you think you are?
Well, yeah, this is where the unlearning comes into play. And this is why, when we are boisterous about things like how trauma shows up in your leadership and it's triggering or it feels uncomfortable, that's the first step, right? Like, I would never have changed in other times in my life if I was not pushed in a certain direction, right? That can mean it hurts too much, or I'm just uncomfortable, or I want that change. But we have to be very realistic, right? Like, these are things that we may have in us that makes one small mind shift about, like, oh, I'm people pleasing. I mean, I had a conversation with someone. This is exactly what happened. And they were not my client, but I said, I hear everything you're saying to me, but it's giving people pleasing. Have you ever thought about that? And they were like, well, not really. So I had to walk down everything that they told me, which was basically before they would do their own work, they would do other people's work.
Oh yeah.
Before they would get to their own, and also there was another part of it where we talked about delegation. They would rather do everything themselves and not bother other people to get the help that they need. I said,
Hmm.
there's a lot of toxicity there. Let's back this up, right? Let's back this train up. So people pleasing was the next one that came up, and I want to just dive into this one because if you're avoiding conflict, like with your team or potential team, right? Some people don't want to hire people because they're like, oh, I've had bad experiences and I don't want to deal with that.
Hmm.
Or if you're avoiding conflict with your clients to feel safe and accepted, like a lot of times we're people pleasing just not to have that confrontation or that uncomfortable conversation.
Oh yeah. Exactly. And again, that's the good girl. You have to be good. You have to be liked by everyone in order to be safe. So, hey, Miracle. Yes. So it is the people pleasing, and so many women have this, and myself included. That was one of the big things for me was trying to please other people. And I actually, for a long time, I didn't even know what I wanted. We can become that detached from what we want because we've been. If you were brought up in a trauma response as a child, you become hyper aware, especially if you're like empathic or sensitive. We can we can become hyper aware of what everyone else is doing in the room. Oh my God, Allegra's feeling a bit, she needs this, and that person is, we become super aware of what everyone else is feeling, but we never figure out what we want or what our own needs are. Our
Yeah.
needs are here, and everyone else's needs are much more important. And we want to have them at least on the same level, guys, because you don't want to you want we want to stop setting ourselves on fire so that other people can be warm. That's really the thing. When you're in that trauma loop, that's what you do. And I did it for so long. I don't even want to think about it. All the time, all the ways that I set myself on fire and abandoned myself just so that someone else could feel more comfortable. And we do that in 1,000 little ways. We abandon ourselves. We don't look at something. We don't even know what we want because we're basically we're hyper attuned to what other people might be needing or thinking or doing.
Yeah, this is so real and this is so deep. It's so deep. And so we are actually talking about uh really getting to that subconscious of a person, because there are some people that are just conditioned, like some of us are just conditioned. And I was hearing that there are people that just never get to a point of awareness, right? There are some individuals that just never get to the point of awareness where they understand that, these are not my thoughts. This
Yeah.
that's I don't really even like that. I'm just doing it because that's what I did when I was with this person.
Yeah.
And I remember even hearing a story about a lady that got older, maybe probably let's say 80s or something, right? We're just gonna give an example. And at that age, she didn't have her partner anymore. She didn't have her family like she used to around her. And when she had to go do things like maybe go cook something to eat or whatever, she didn't know what she liked. She had never had spaghetti before ever in her life. There were so many
Wow.
experiences that she just did not think about having,
Yeah.
because everything surrounded, her kids and her partner, and what does the family need, and what does my job need,
Yeah.
what do my parents need, and I am guilty for getting caught up in a lot of other people's needs because I have a big heart like most of us do. But I think that's where we have to have boundaries when it comes to our business and when it comes to our lives, when it becomes a hindrance of some kind. Okay.
Yeah.
And so this is why I want to say that these areas that we covered, right? Micromanaging, avoiding delegation, over giving, overworking, fear, visibility, people pleasing, whether you're at your 9 to 5 job or you're operating a business, this is how trauma shows up in leadership.
Yeah, 100%. And it is that internalized voice, the shaming voice that really comes underneath this, or the shame feeling. For me, it was both a voice and a feeling of shame, that would just kind of come and, basically hijack my system and make me do these things like kind of like a zombie or some, I'd do things and then not even notice I was doing it, or not do things, because, and that's what why trauma, it's like, I talk about the real, people are so worried about AI, but really our conditioning, our trauma is the real thing that is keeping us hostage here. And the inner critic, everyone tells you, and for years this is what I did. You try to sit down with it, you try to understand it, you try to empathize with it, when really it's just a shaming voice. It's just a kind of shaming parasite that keeps kind of sucking you and telling you're not worthy, and feeding all of these people pleasing, the fawning, the need to control, all of that is driven by shame. And we want to shame is not natural. Shame is not normal. It's normalized, but it's not normal. It's not something it's something that we all have internalized, particularly in Western culture. There's this idea that doesn't exist in the East so much, but in Western culture, this idea that I'm bad, that I'm a sinner, there's something bad of you with you. It's become internalized in so many of us, especially women, because we have also been, we have the added on thing about sexuality and dirty women, and we have to be ashamed of ourselves and our sexuality. We have to hide all of that so that other people can be comfortable. And this, it just means that shame is driving so many women, and it's unconsciously. It's not that they're controlled by, we're all being controlled by it, but we can't even see, how that is operating. So we want to totally claim our power, take our power back from this, because shame doesn't help you. Shame is always about control and power and domination, and never really, it's never helping you grow. I think that's the biggest lie that I learned, that this shaming voice, it has your best interests at heart. That's what I thought for years. But really, it just wanted to keep me small in my little box and to control me. And to break out of that is really coming out of the cage.
Yeah, that's powerful. Leadership isn't about control, right? Like it's
No.
just, how you hold that capacity and learn how to delegate with grace,
Yeah.
right? You're not a perfectionist. Got to be compassionate, guys. And also, trauma does show up in other ways. So we'll quickly go over this because, I'm very mindful of time. Emma, thank you so much again for joining me in this, weekly live stream. Guys, if you like the live stream, if this is something that you feel connected to, I want you guys to join us every week because you never know what is going to come out of this conversation. I've had conversations in the past, Emma, that still to this day people go, "Oh my gosh, that was such a great conversation." I'm like, "That was over a year ago." So
Really?
you
Wow.
never know what, girl, it's stuff that we've done in so long ago, and people will watch, and it will come across their feed based on what the algorithm is doing somewhat, but we never know. We never know. And so we want you guys to tune in every single week if you can, just to make sure you can level up. I mean, this is a serious thing. It's not one time, one hit wonder. We all kind of grew up learning a certain way, and now we have to take time to unlearn that. It's not going to take a day.
Yeah.
So the next part is how trauma shows up in sales, guys. This is going to be very interesting. Real quick, Emma, it says that trauma shows up when you undervalue your offer. So that means like you have a product or a service, and you hesitate to actually charge what that real value is, right? Because deep down inside you may fear rejection, or you think you're not good enough. Like, who am I to charge that much? I'll
Yeah.
give you guys an example after you comment, Emma.
That's so true. And particularly if you're selling a product or service that you're doing, this is when it becomes difficult. You ever notice that it's really easy to sell someone else's stuff, You don't have that freezing. You don't have that, oh my God, fear, what are they going to think? It shows up when you're trying to sell your own things. That's because this fear is about you. It's about, oh my God, I have to do it perfectly. Oh my God, I'm not giving them enough. So it's that again, it's the shame in the operating system here that makes us undervalue what we're giving, or feel like we have to give more and more in order to make everyone super satisfied. Even though some people are going to like you and some people aren't. Some people are going to be drawn to the way you're speaking, and someone is going to be drawn to someone else, and that's okay. You want to attract your people, and that means being in alignment with who you are, and also recognizing the value that you're giving, and valuing, and setting a price that's appropriate, that feels good for you and feels a valid exchange of energy. Otherwise you're going to end up, and I've felt this, you can end up kind of secretly resenting your clients. If you're basically giving away your stuff for a few pennies, you end up resenting them, and that energy is so repelling. And it's also soul destroying, because you're struggling, you're giving people real value, and also people don't value the cheap stuff. That's just a fact of human nature, right, Allegra? If you're selling something for like $5
Yep.
and the same thing is for like $500, you're going to value the thing that's $500. You're going to do all the work instead of, I've bought courses for $1 and I've never gone through them. But it could be, I'm sure it's really good. So we want to value ourselves appropriately so that we show that we're taking ourselves seriously and other people are taking us seriously on that same level.
Yeah. There's a quote that says when people pay, they pay
They
attention.
pay attention.
There's an
Yes.
actual quote that says that because like if I pay $100 or $1 opposed to $1,000, I'm going to move quicker paying a
Yeah.
thousand dollars because
That's human
I want to get
nature.
my
You're going
money's
to
worth.
show up. You're going to show up because that's
I'm gonna
no
be like
joke.
whatever, and then and I'm gonna start asking questions, the right questions. I'm gonna be, you know what I'm saying? Like if you're gonna charge, this is one thing I say, undervaluing your offer. When you said that you'll start to resent your clients, the reason is because you'll start attracting the wrong people.
Yes. And
Undervaluing
they
your
will
offer
they
means
will be taking advantage of you because you're open the door to that. You'll
yes,
attract
they
the
will
wrong,
come
you'll attract the, what are they
quickly.
called? Freebie seekers, the freebie seekers. They want the cheap healing, they want the cheap business coaching, but they're probably not serious about it yet. They haven't hit that point where they're like, it's ride or die now. We got to make it work. They're still trying to bootstrap it or trying to do it on the cheap or do it on the side, and they're not taking it seriously. So that's not the kind of client you want. You want clients who are really ready, and that means
Yeah,
charging
and
it.
you got to be careful around that. They have to be very careful because if you are attracting those clients that are like that, you'll tend to start people pleasing again,
Yeah,
right? Because now you're
exactly.
like, well, I kind of like got them here. So undervaluing your offer was one. Avoiding the ask, that was another one.
Um,
This is one that I actually
I've done
go
that.
through a
Done
lot in
that.
my sessions, Emma.
Yeah,
Oh my God, we're constantly having this discussion because you know how it is with money and
yeah.
how people feel around asking for money, which is just it's just an asset. But if you have trauma around it, then it's gonna make you feel some type of way. And I think we even talked about it because I'm a believer, right? I believe in the Bible and what it talks about when it comes down to the love of money being the root of all evil. But that doesn't mean I avoid making as much money as I can in my business. It just means I'm not going to let it control me, right? Like what
That's
money,
it.
just because it's money doesn't mean it matters all the time. But if it's something that, say, I'm using the money that I make in my business to serve more people, right? And to do more in the world, that's feeling good about asking someone to make that exchange, right? I'm like, hey, the more you pay me, the more I'm going to be able to do more good in the world. But if you're avoiding the ask, this means that you love to serve people, but you hate to sell. And that ain't good because you're actually thinking that selling is equated with manipulation, or what did you say, Emma? Shame.
Selling out, shame. Oh yeah, of course, yeah. My favorite word. Yeah, it's like we think it's the kind of way of selling out. And this was me when I started, for many, many years. I struggled to make the ask. And I remember, and maybe Allegra, I think you might have done this as well, talking to someone and kind of adjusting my price, thinking like this was the price, and then talking to them and thinking, oh my God, this person doesn't seem to have much money. And then I did give them like a special offer, a special discount because I tried to please them. And it never worked out, because it comes from a place of desperation. And I'll openly admit, like, I have been in those desperate spots where you like need the money. You're like, and again, you're coming to from a really kind of controlling, I have to make this thing work. And you're not asking, there's like a tension there, it's, and people pick up on that, and that's when you get people saying, they get kind of it's a fear. This is a fear of rejection when you avoid the ask. It's really this fear, oh my God, they're going to reject me. So we try to please it. Maybe if I make it cheaper, maybe if I give you like a discount and we could spread out the payments into a million different payments and you can pay me whenever. And it just becomes people don't take you seriously because quite frankly, you're not taking yourself seriously either. So how can you get make the ask when you're not taking yourself seriously?
Whew, this is deep. So before we go to the last one, because there's a couple more, I just say like this is really powerful in making sure that you understand your own value and your worth, because they can't buy your worth, right? They can only buy the value that you put into the package of pricing, and when you're talking about this concept of it being like you feel that selling is manipulation and it's shameful. I've had so many conversations, Emma, with individuals, especially women, who
Yeah,
really just have never, the reason why they have never sold a product, a reason why they never really sell like they want to, is because they just don't ask. That's it. It's not about the fact that they're not good. They're excellent at what they do.
yeah,
I mean, they can do things that I've seen no one could do. And because they're not willing to just say, hey, in order for me to do that for you, it's going to be $500. Here's the link to buy. Because like you said, if they get that far, which I've done this, guys, you get that far where you're on the phone or you're in front of someone and you're saying, you have to pay me for my time, for my work, for my value, right? You have to pay me for my resources. And to have someone look you in your face and say, nah, I'm not going to do that. That feels like rejection. But the
yeah,
truth in business, and this is why we have like a lot of mindset shifts, right? In conversations. The truth is that in business, it's not about you. You're actually selling a product for your business. So if you were working for a company and someone and you were in a sales department and someone said no, you wouldn't sweat it, right? Because you'd be like, okay, I tried. I'll get the next one. I'll get the next one. Every single no is getting you closer to your yes. So in order to get to your goal, like making the sale, getting the partnership, right? Making the product, creating whatever, before you get there, you have to actually be getting as many rejections, as many no's as possible. The more no's that you get, the more successful you will be. So we have to stop avoiding asking for the sale. And Emma can help you with that shift when it comes down to really getting that trauma out of there. That stuff is stuck in our nervous system, it's stuck in our minds too. But if you don't realize that that's what's holding you back, then we can identify just through these points here, avoiding the ask. If you haven't asked for the sale and that's what's holding you back, then there you go. That's where you're having the issue. Codependent selling. This is another area that shows up how trauma shows up in sales when you feel overly responsible for other people's buying
yeah.
decisions or emotions. You talked about that.
Yeah, it's because they're look how they're all connected. Like where
If
that's
people
the fear you that's the overgiving. You feel like you're responsible for the person's outcome. So you have to make sure you have to struggle, you have to control to make sure they get the result. And if you don't, it feels like you're responsible. When maybe the truth is they never showed up. And that happens too. It's nothing to do with you if they don't show up and they don't do the homework or they never put the system or the strategy into use. They know the strategy, but they never use the freaking thing. That's not about you not doing your job. That's their side of the road. So we've got to recognize that you give them the system, you show them the way, you give them your part, but there's still, and even with healing or therapy, it's a two-way street. You can't just go to therapy and talk about things and then expect yourself to be fine. There's you've got to embody that. You've got to start doing that in every way, bringing what you learn into your day-to-day life. Otherwise, things aren't going to change for you. So it's just you're helping them with one level, then they're responsible for, that's their side of the road. And if they're not ready to put things into action, that's not your fault. That's not your responsibility. That's theirs.
Yeah, that is so powerful because a lot of us will actually come into, especially in the startup phase, come into business, and work with individuals and think that we have to pressure them to, make that next move. Whereas that's not our job. Our job is to give them an offer, let them decide on what their next step is going to be. But just making sure that we are informing them and inviting them in,
That's it. You're
right? Like you
inviting.
don't have to. The biggest thing, Emma, yeah, yeah. They're like, I don't like being salesy. Like, who told you you have to be salesy?
You can
Um,
invite them. You say, "This is what I offer. What do you think?" And let it be clean. You don't have to manipulate it. If they need it, if it's the right fit, they'll find a way to do it if they're serious and if they really want the result that you can help them get. But again, you're not responsible for them
Absolutely.
saying yes. So you do your part, you show up, and they need to do their work. They need to say yes in order for you to have an agreement, in order for you to, and they need to do their part of the work as well.
Yeah, like stop moving forward for people who haven't paid you yet.
Exactly.
Stop. So I've had so many people come to me and they're like, "Yeah, like client, and this is happening, that's happening." I'm like, "You did all that. How much have they paid you?" And they're like, "Oh, they haven't paid me yet." What? No,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. That's not the way it works. Okay. So
Yeah.
so let's allow people to be invited into our process, but make sure they make the right exchange first, right? Don't extend the invitation just to say, I have a client and they haven't even paid you yet. Have people pay with something, right? Even if you're beta testing, maybe they haven't paid with their money, but they're paying with their effort, time, testimonials, right? Giving you feedback, making sure that your process is streamlined, helping you with different areas. This part of the how trauma impacts self-worth, Emma, I know you're going to love this because this is really highlighting all of your areas. The first thing was imposter syndrome. No matter how much you achieve, it never feels like enough. Boo-hoo.
Well, yeah, and that shows you that it's not about achievement. I was just thinking about, the inner voice that you have to get an A, you have to do it this, you have to be perfect. And then guess what? When you get that A, the voice is like, "Oh, it's not good enough. You need to do better. You need to get the next thing." You're never satisfied. And that's kind of what imposter syndrome is. You're never enough. There's this constant struggle for more and more. And when you're in these positions, you feel like, "Oh my God, I shouldn't be here. People are going to find out because I'm not worthy." Again, guess what it's coming down to? It's coming back to that shame again. That shame voice that says you don't belong, you're not good enough, you shouldn't be doing this, and whatever else the shaming voice says to you. The my shaming voice, I call it an inner narcissist. It used to say awful things to me, like, "Oh my God," it got really malignant sometimes. It would just say, "You're failure, you're useless, you're no good." And imagine trying to move forward with something like a business or somewhere where you have to show up and show your face while you've got that draining you 24/7. It's really really hard. So it's no joke, but it is you're not an imposter. You're doing it. You're one step ahead of the people. And I know it's one thing to say it, and then it's another thing to really embody it, because these are like belief systems and structures that we've internalized to keep ourselves small. And we want to break out of that imposter syndrome. It's just shame. Shame is not natural. Shame is not normal. Shame is normalized in our culture, but it's not normal. We
Yeah.
want to break out of the cage of shame.
Yeah, I totally agree. And this is something that, I think we have to really just internalize, right? Like as we're speaking, I'm always thinking about like, is this an area that I need to be focused on right now? And so, imposter syndrome, it has come up, and I know people play with words and they go, "Oh, well, I don't like using that word." It is what it is. Is basically, no matter how much you do, no matter how much you achieve, no matter how much you win, how much you succeed, you never feel like it's good enough.
No.
And, that's a very depressing feeling. That's a very depressing place to be. So we want to make sure that we change that narrative. So you're not feeling like you can't shift into a mindset of, say, for example, like, we love to affirm ourselves. It doesn't matter if you're a business owner or not. I tell people all the time, people have spoken into your life all your life. When have you spoken into yourself? When have you actually told yourself, how worthy you are, how visible you are, how at peace you are, how much you deserve to be loved and adorned and protected and provided for? Like, I think we have to own up to all of these ways that, we experience trauma in our self-worth. Because that's all you have, yo. Like, and self-sabotage is another one that came up where, a lot of times we delay things, right? Like, we avoid showing up and we hide.
Procrastination. Yeah. Self sabotage. There's so many different ways. And yeah, again, the root of it, we can all trace it back to shame. So self sabotage is when we kind of put secret roadblocks in front of ourselves and we look like we're trying to move forward, but really we're putting up all these impediments and procrastinating and perfection. Perfectionism is one of these, the way we sabotage ourselves. And we procrastinate because we're waiting to be perfect or we're trying to control it. So many of these things mix into each other. And yeah, I think so many women, I used to really be focused on self sabotage, but now I really see that shame is the kind of undercurrent of all of this. And yeah, it's really, you are your own. There's that African proverb. Have you heard it? When there's no enemy within, the enemy without can do no harm. Have you heard that, Allegra? It's
Yep, sure
it's
have.
so true. Nobody else can sabotage you, really. You're the only one who can stop yourself, and you're the only one that can set yourself free as well. You're the only one that can sabotage your success. You're the only one who has that power to stop yourself and to
Yeah.
sabotage your growth and business success. And it's so important that you want to embody not just the part where you become successful and are empty inside, and feel like an imposter the whole time. You want to align success where you're doing something that really sets your soul on fire, and that fulfills you, and where you're making all the money that you want as well. That's what aligned success looks like. It doesn't look like just doing something out of obligation and feeling like a failure, even though you're super successful and have achieved all the things. We want aligned success where we're not sabotaging ourselves. We're in a constant growth and expansion, and just expanding ourselves and making money and thriving. Really, this is about thriving and not putting roadblocks in the way of that anymore.
Yep, I love every bit of it. And the last part before we talk about, how to really heal and reclaim your voice and vision, guys, because Emma has some solutions for you. I want to talk about the comparison traps, which this is really,
Ooh,
I've
yeah.
heard this a lot. Man, just being in a space where we're not, like, we're questioning ourselves constantly about our value and looking at what others are doing and deeming that like better. I mean, I have been there so many times where I'm looking at someone else's social media feed, or I'm looking at their website, or I'm, watching them do something in real life and kind of saying to myself, I wish I could be doing that right now, or I wish my social media looked like that, and I think that these comparison traps that we fall into, because I remember those times where I did have those conversations with myself in my own head, right? That inner narcissist Emma's talking about. I was already hindering myself from opportunities. Because once you have that first thought of someone else is doing it better than me, it starts to trickle
Oh,
down
yeah.
to all these other thoughts of like, see, this is why this and this is why that. And and you're really bad at that, and this is why your business isn't taking off, and this is why you suck at everything, right? And so we
Yeah.
get in our heads. But go ahead, I would love for you to comment on that before we give some solutions.
Yeah, no, I mean this is such a classic example. You know, narcissists. I realized the voice in my head was just like a narcissist because of this. This is called triangulation when narcissists do it, and it's when they look at you and say, "Oh my God, Allegra, your business is so crap. Look how great this person is doing," you know. And that's exactly what a narcissist does. It compares you to other people and says you're useless, shames you for not being on their level. So it's really debilitating because you can always find someone who's doing better than you, who's better looking or has, nice filters, and they might have a nicer body or be younger than you. You can always find that. It all depends what you're looking for and what the voice in your head thinks is better or worse. It's all, these things are all subjective. So it's a huge trap comparison. You want to stay in your own lane. I talked about that before. And here as well, you need to stay in your own lane and avoid comparing yourself to other people because you don't know what that other person has been through. Maybe they've been through hell. Maybe they had, you don't know. Then there, lots of people are successful and their life looks fabulous and they look successful, but they're in the middle of a horrible divorce. They've just lost their child. You really don't know. So this comparison trap, it doesn't have any evidence really to support its claim that they're doing better than you. It's just all circumstantial evidence, again, to make you feel shame, to keep you in your little box, to keep you safe, to keep you down, to shame you into submission and control you.
Man, okay, so let's get now that we've identified how trauma impacts these areas, let's give some solutions for you guys to really look at how to heal and reclaim your voice and vision, right?
Yeah,
It's never too late.
it is never too late. And the first, I have like an acronym, which is BREAK, BREAK, right? So, first one, number one, you want to break the trance. So, when the shame voice comes along and says, "Oh, Allegra, you can't do that thing. What are they going to say? What's everyone going to think?" You want to break that trance, recognize that it's not your voice. It's a spell. It's exactly like a spell. It's a pattern. You're kind of in this trance state when it happens. So, when you catch it, you interrupt it, you name it. This is a trance. It's not you. It's not your voice. And this was the thing that got me in a bind when I thought this voice was me. I thought it was my intuition. Break it up. So that's B. Then you want R, refuse to engage. You don't owe explanations. You don't owe defenses. Drop the rope. Don't argue. You don't argue with a trance or some kind of spell. Dr. Romani, who's an expert on narcissism, she talks about deep. Don't defend, don't explain, don't engage, and don't personalize is the last one. So you just say, no, not today. Don't get pulled into a big argument or defense or anything like that. Then E, you want to expose the lie. So cut out the shame based programming. This is control. This is not my story. And that already disarms its power. Then you come to A, where you anchor it in your truth. You come back into your body because this trance, it kind of takes you over. It's like it takes you out of your body. Come back to your body, feel your breath, and just come name. Maybe you can like look what's around you. Remind your nervous system, I'm safe, I'm sovereign, I'm here, and then just kick it out. Like you can physically like shake out this thing, shake out the shame. And it's not always a voice. Sometimes it's just a feeling. Like I remember when I was a child, if people looked at me in class, I would just go so red and the heat would just come over you. And it wasn't a voice. It was just like that feeling of shame. And you can break up with that shame. You can break up with that voice by following this. Just not identifying it, recognizing that it's not you, and just like shaking it off. It's not you. It's not trying to give you a magical signal that you're not worthy. It's a narcissist. It's like a parasite that's trying to suck you dry. And it doesn't have your best interest at heart. That was really key for me because all my life I've been told that this voice, it might be the voice of intuition, that it's got my best interest at heart, while all the while it was like trying to kill me. So this has been really key for me and for the people that I work with to start getting free of that.
Um, Okay, it wasn't unmuting for a second. Sorry about that. This is powerful. So, how to heal, there are some methods you guys can use. Emma just gave you one. And just really being able to be in a space where, you are writing down your journey. I tell people all the time, like one of the missing elements in a lot of our lives is writing it down. And being able to, like, I was literally writing it down, Emma, as you were going through that. But for those of you who need that personal one-on-one, and you're just stuck in some of these areas and it's not really working out for you, but you want to see how you can really heal better and reclaim your voice and vision, Emma has programs and services. Emma, can you drop your link, if possible, because we're going to wrap it up, in the comment section? That way we will put this out there for you guys, especially those of you who are watching the replay. I will say this as well. Some of the things that I think are really important about reclaiming your voice and your vision, because I think we're constantly healing, is like, when you were talking about it, Emma, it's just really naming it, right? And so when
Yeah.
you guys feel like you're getting that first recognizing that voice, right? And you have to interrupt it and name it, like Emma said, maybe write that thing down, right? Like get into a practice of putting things down, and just making sure you have a database of your healing. I don't know how many times I've gone back to things that I've journaled about and I go, oh my God, I got through that and I didn't even realize I got through that.
Yeah.
But because I was able to journal and see it afterwards, I was able to see how I got through it. And it gave me so much encouragement and confidence, to continue to overcome things. And so, awareness is the first step, guys. So Emma said, name that thing, and give yourself grace. Like, you come really far. You have survived 100% of your bad days. So
That's, I love
it's,
that actually. I might steal that off you, Allegra. That's great.
yeah, I got that from somewhere. um but you're not alone, and many women carry, like, I mean, powerful women carry trauma, like you said, Emma. Like, we're normalizing it, right? But I want you guys to realize, like, give yourself grace, but no, you're not alone. Like, there's communities, like there's Women into Networking, there's other communities I've been a part of, as far as like Girl to Girl. I haven't been a member yet, but I've seen their amazing experiences together. Shout out to Healing While Building Community with Lashana West, one of our Win corporate sponsors, right? When you get into spaces with other women who you can talk to, you can share like-minded conversations with, and you can talk about maybe some of those traumas that come up. Like, I've had so many conversations about self-sabotage and imposter syndrome and perfectionism and people pleasing. We just talked about it
Yeah.
yesterday.
And the
So
shame voice will try to tell you that you're the only one in the world who feels this way. You're the only one who's this bad. You're the only one who ever feels that way. That's what it says. And it's just a complete lie.
yeah. Don't believe it. You're not alone. We're examples here on this stage to show you that there are powerful women that, we carry traumatic experiences. Doesn't have to be who you are. Also, replace, like those reactions, like we call it being reactive versus being responsive, right? So like Emma just said, like, get with those habitual grounded responses. And I think that takes us being intentional about our accountability system, who we're working with. I have coaches, mentors, support systems to really check me, because what's in your head comes out your mouth. So let's just be honest, if it starts in your head, it will eventually come out. That's why your clients are like that's why some people who want to be your client or who want to buy from you, that's why they run away. And we don't even realize we are saying these things. So you want to have an accountability system, and make sure that you know like as you move forward, and we're going to be talking about this next week, Emma, I'll join us next week. Myself and Emma will be having another live stream series. uh, Basically, in this series, we are bringing up different topics surrounding the trauma matrix, right? It's a huge thing because it surrounds our entire life pie. And Emma has the resources to really support you to navigate forward and just remind yourself, right? Like you're creating from, your healed place, right? You don't have to stay stuck or unhealed, or you don't have to feel the way you feel. I know a lot of people go through depression a lot and they feel lost and unwanted, and you don't have to be there. You can actually create from a space where you are healing and you are constantly surrounded by the right support. Let's see if Emma dropped her link in the comments. Did you get it in there, Emma? No, okay. We'll put it in the comments later. Oh, it's in a private chat. I gotcha. Let me get this. I'm gonna put this in the comments for you guys. Emma, do you have any? Oh, you're on mute, I think, Emma.
It was me speaking. So, yeah, this is my free resource for you guys. It's 5 signs that it's time to break up with your inner narcissist. So, it's an amazing tool that's going to give you like five. If you're thinking, oh my God, maybe the inner critic is more than just an inner critic in my case, this will give you the signs and some tools about how to recognize it first of all, and how to start breaking free of that. We've talked about it a little in this live, but that would be the next step. And make sure you follow me everywhere. That's it. Perfect. Not today, Narc. Because you don't want a narcissist. You don't want a narcissist out there running your life, and you don't want the narcissist in your head running your life. Time to break up with it for good.
Okay, well, wonderful final words. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll drop this in all of the channels so that you can pull the link and get your free resource. Emma and I will be back next week to have more of this conversation. If you guys have any questions around it, myself as a business coach and as a marketing medulla, I highly suggest you guys take a move in Q3. There's a lot of opportunities for you to get ready for the holiday season. And some people, listen, don't think it's ever too late to hit your goals. We are not at the end of it yet. Okay, so keep pushing, keep moving, and we will see you guys next week.